Next, the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show with Snowden Bishop. After this message.
Most people don't realize that cannabis is serious business that requires serious technology solutions. Hi, I'm Terry from Sunstate Technology Group, where we are seriously proud to provide technology and security systems that help cannabis companies compete and succeed. From planning and expansion to hardware and daily IT support, I'm here to tell you that having the right technology is critical to security and smooth business operations. Partner with a technology team that understands the unique needs of this industry. For details, visit sunstatetech.com/cannabis. sunstatetech.com/cannabis.
And now, it's time for the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show with Snowden Bishop. Listen in as Snowden interviews cannabis industry pioneers, marijuana experts, policymakers, medical practitioners, patients, and other amazing individuals with compelling stories to share. It all happens right now. Here's the Cannabis Reporter, Snowden Bishop.
Evergreen is calling.
Hi, and welcome back to the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show. I'm your host, Snowden Bishop. Happy to be with you today. I wanted to pay homage to one of our planet's most abundant, healthy, regenerative, renewable, and sustainable resources. You guessed it, cannabis. Prior to Prohibition, wild cannabis grew in many regions in the United States. It grows rapidly in adverse climate conditions and resists most pests that can destroy other crops, so it can thrive without many chemical pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers when grown outdoors where it can breathe in natural sunlight. Hemp, which is marijuana's non-psychotropic cousin, can be used to make nearly anything that is now made with fossil fuels such as motor oil, fuel, petrochemicals, synthetic textiles, plastic, and paper. Rather than emitting carbon into the atmosphere, it's actually carbon negative. Composites made of cannabis are actually stronger and more durable, and it has premium value as a food source and medicine. Unfortunately, growing cannabis where nature intended is not yet possible in most states due to antiquated federal laws. Most states where growing marijuana is now legal, they require that the cultivation is done indoors under lights that produce a lot of heat and evaporative moisture. This opens the door to a host of issues with things like mold, fungus, and pests that would not likely proliferate outdoors. Cultivators are then forced to deal with these issues by applying pesticides, fungicides, and other toxic chemicals. So when it comes to growing marijuana for medicinal purposes, the solution becomes a dangerous health issue. Some believe that cannabis can be the key to a carbon-neutral future, and others believe that it's vital to reversing trends in climate change. But of course, it's really set to transform medicine, and growing it is the topic of today's show. And I'm so excited to introduce our guest, but first, Dr. Brian Donner has our Medical Marijuana Minute. What do you have for us today, Dr. Donner?
Thank you, Snowden. I believe the discovery of the endocannabinoid system and understanding its operation and utility could turn out to be one of the most important medical revelations of modern-day medicine. It amazes me that most nursing colleges and medical schools still offer little to no coursework and baseline education on this subject. I would personally like to invite patients and medical practitioners to join me at the World Medical Cannabis Conference and Expo, which will be held in Pittsburgh, PA on April 21st and 22nd, during which time attendees can participate in a medical cannabis education course and have the opportunity to earn continuing medical education credit. For more information about this, please visit CompassionateCertificationCenters.com. I'm Dr. Brian Donner for the Cannabis Reporter. I'll be back next week with another Medical Marijuana Minute. Back to you, Snowden.
Thank you, Dr. Donner. We'll hear from you again next week. So let's get started. Amy Anderle, a founding board member of the Organic Cannabis Association, serves on the City of Denver's Cannabis Sustainability Work Group, and along with her husband is co-owner of Legal Services, a Denver-based clean cannabis cultivation and dispensary. She is committed to setting a new sustainability standard for the industry. From eco-friendly facility development to a pesticide-free final product, She is leading the charge on making cannabis industry as green as possible, and not only within her own business, but also for the industry as a whole. So you advocate for the adoption of sustainable practices across the board. Is that right, Amy?
It is, and thank you for that great introduction.
Oh, you're certainly welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You know, I'm amazed that more people don't really understand just how sustainable cannabis as an entire plant species can be. And I mean, so many people have acknowledged this over the years, but it just never really got the attention that it deserves. And one thing that I wanted to just read, which was a quote years ago by Alan Block, who's a reporter, editor for the OC Register in California. He said, since 1937, about half of the world's forests have been cut down to make paper. And if hemp had not been outlawed, most of those would still be standing and oxygenating the planet. So tell me, from your perspective, where you think the industry needs to go in order to embrace the sustainability factor of cannabis.
You know, so it's a good question. I think we need to just keep moving forward. Something that I have tried to point out over the past recent days, I've been speaking a little bit more about sustainability, given that Earth Day is around the corner. And, you know, we have come so far in such a short amount of time as an industry. If you look back, it was only 2009 when a lot of these grows here in the state of Colorado, at the time they were medical, started coming online, coming out of the shadows, being able to operate and function legally. And so from 2009 until 2017, what we've been able to do in terms of utilizing innovation and really working to do as much research regarding sustainability is pretty monumental. You know, people need to remember that sustainable tactics when it comes to growing cannabis, particularly growing cannabis indoors, they ultimately save the business on our bottom line. So you're talking about energy bills that are excessive and very high. And then to that, in your intro, you pointed out the challenges that come with growing indoors. So you've got the integrated pest management, and when you're changing the humidity of these environments. And so we have these comprehensive HVAC systems that are helping to purify the air and clean the air and help prevent pests. But at the same time, these new high-tech HVAC systems are also odor mitigators, and they are energy efficient and incredibly sustainable because, you know, we're always upgrading. I can't remember the last time in my business we went more than 12 months without upgrading a major system, whether it be water, energy, waste, HVAC. So I think that, you know, I don't want the industry to get a bad reputation for being energy hogs when we are being incredibly proactive as compared to other ag industries who've been around for hundreds of years, considering the time frame with which we've been operating.
Right.
You know, sustainability, in our sense, we want to be seen as a welcomed industry, as sustainable in all senses of the word. And so to that means normalizing, and we don't want to be seen as weighing heavily on an energy grid. You know, are there opportunities for industry to be doing better? Yes, there are, and I think that we can touch on those. But overall, I think it is worth acknowledging how fast we've come forward.
Right. You know, I think we, as an industry, couldn't help but go very rapidly because, you know, as more and more people become aware of the benefits of cannabis, whether it be industrial hemp or medicinal hemp and marijuana, you know, the demand is going up exponentially. I mean, you just look at the awareness, you know, someone becomes aware of the benefits and suddenly, you know, that's a new consumer. So, so it has to, I would imagine, you know, as the word has spread over the last few years, especially since more and more people have free access, not free as in cost free, but free access in terms of it's not illegal in several states now to have access to it, so people are more willing to go and try it rather than, suffer the indignity of going to their doctors to ask for certification, which some are afraid to do. But it's interesting, and I think that you're right. It has to continue growing in that positive light. Do you advocate for growing outdoors? Like, if it were legal, would you, as a grower, prefer to grow product outside?
Oh gosh, Snowden, it took us so long to hone in and really get down to a science, our indoor cultivation facility, that I think it's something we would certainly vet, and we would look at the benefits, or the cost benefit analysis and labor. But I don't want to say no to anything, but right now we're just feeling like we've gotten our arms and we're dialed in indoors. I know, as the Cannabis Sustainability Work Group that we're working on with the city of Denver, people ask us that question as well. Well, what about this as it relates to greenhouses or outdoor cultivation? And I think what we're just sort of biting off one chunk at a time and saying, let's look at these indoor facilities. And then, absolutely, if there are ways, best practices that we can incorporate from an outdoor grow or a greenhouse into a warehouse, and or vice versa, we will do that. But I think it's something our business looks at, but we'll have to evaluate that when the time comes.
Yeah, and because so many people really have no idea what goes into actually growing medicinal marijuana, explain to me like some of the processes that you go through in setting it up or just on a daily basis to maintain your crops indoors.
Right. Yeah, so, we set up our facility based on how we wanted to cultivate. And we chose to cultivate, and everybody, there's conventional and there's organic when you go into almost any grocery store these days. And we wanted to take the slant of, sort of a race to the top. We use organic best practice standards. So to that, we've set up our facility a little bit differently in that we have smaller flowering rooms. We have an area for vegetation, for vegging the plants, and then obviously for clones and for the mothers, so that we can continue to produce the amount of strains that we have in-house. We've set up our facility such that, again, I spoke with that high-tech HVAC system. Ours is a Remy Halo HVAC system. That's the same kind of air purification system they would have in a hospital as far as cleaning the air as it goes through the system, because for us, that's a huge part of integrated pest management. And when you're trying to grow with organic best practice and you're trying to deliver a clean cannabis or pesticide-free end product, you need to make sure that your integrated pest management covers as much of that as possible without relying on pesticides. So part of that is how clean is the air, because when you have humidity problems or your dehumidification fails or your ventilation fails, that really creates an environment for molds and funguses. So you have to be very proactive about that. So we've invested a lot there. We have looked at lighting. I think that there's different lighting for flowering rooms versus a bedroom. We do use LED lighting when we find it to be a benefit to the plant. And so I would say about, a little under half the lights, maybe about half the lights in our facility are LED lights. So we are always evaluating and testing new lights, though. We kind of cordon off a small area of our grow so that we can do this R&D and we can see how does a plant perform under that, because ultimately you're also looking at your own production. You don't want to sacrifice quality, right?
Right.
And then, we spend a lot of time on labor hours and labor. We have an incredibly qualified staff, many of whom hold environmental science degrees and who've worked with and in organic agriculture. And so our staff is really hands-on with the plant. We do some hand watering, and that allows them to get face-to-face with the plant and really identify any, the health and assess the health of the plant. So I would say, our staff does more cleaning than anyone would imagine. There's this idea that the cannabis industry is this really, some people might romanticize the idea of growing pot for a living. And our team cleans and works harder than nearly anyone I've seen. And I come from a food and beverage background, so that's high praise. And, above that, I would say it's about harvesting and how are you harvesting and you choose to do that. For us, I think that the perpetual harvest is not that appealing because you